They say China changes every time you blink, but what if you never looked away? What if you watched it grow, stumble, rise, and explode onto the world stage, up close for 30 wild years? This isn't just about one person's trip, this is about millions of stories. Backpackers who got stranded in the Gobi, teachers who showed up for a year and never left, locals who watched their sleepy towns become mega-cities, and history unfolding while no one was looking. For the past 3 decades, China hasn't just changed, it's transformed. And these are the real stories. The kind you won't find in guidebooks or documentaries with polite music. This is China through the eyes of the people who lived it, loved it, struggled with it, and never forgot it. Here's the problem. Most people outside of China still see it in black and white. It's either portrayed as ancient temples and kung fu monks, or as a high-tech superpower with facial recognition and censorship. But what about the space in between? What about the messy, unpredictable, thrilling, frustrating, beautiful chaos that exists every day? The challenge is understanding China as it really is. Not as it's sold to tourists or politicized in headlines, but as a living, breathing place full of people figuring life out. Over the past 30 years, travelers and expats tried to understand it, locals tried to hold on to it, and China itself tried to redefine everything. Let's break it all down, one story at a time. Part 1. The Wild 90s, Backpackers, Boomtowns, and Culture Shock. Let's rewind to the 1990s. China had just opened up after decades of isolation. Deng Xiaoping's reforms were in motion. Cities like Shenzhen were growing so fast, people joked that if you stood still too long, you'd get cemented into a new building. Travelers started trickling in, mostly young, broke, and curious. Think oversized backpacks, paper maps, and zero internet. I landed in Beijing in 1994 with no plan, no Mandarin, and $200 in my pocket, says Sarah, a British backpacker. A guy on the train offered me sunflower seeds and told me he was from a town I'd never heard of. Shenzhen. I thought it was a village. I had no idea to become a tech capital. Those early years were weird, exciting, and often ridiculous. You'd order food by pointing randomly at a menu. You'd hop on trains where half the passengers brought their own stools. You'd see kids peeing in the streets, old men flying kites in business suits, and a boomtown springing up where there used to be rice paddies. Locals were curious. Some had never met a foreigner before. I was the only black person in a town of 2 million, says James, an expat teacher from Chicago. People stopped me to touch my hair, take photos, ask if I was from the NBA. It was awkward, but I could tell it came from genuine curiosity. Culture shock went both ways. Westerners were shocked by squat toilets, crowded buses, and hot water being served like tea. Locals were stunned by Westerners who didn't use umbrellas in the sun or ate raw vegetables on purpose. But somehow, through hand gestures, laughter, and a lot of trial and error, connections were made. The early 2000s. Olympics, optimism, and overwhelm. Then came the 2000s. Beijing was prepping for the 2008 Olympics. China was in overdrive. Skyscrapers popped up overnight. New highways stretched for miles. Suddenly you could get Starbucks in Shanghai or McDonald's in Chengdu, and Westerners were coming in droves. English teachers, entrepreneurs, musicians, diplomats, influencers before influencers, the mix was wild. I came to teach English for a year and ended up opening a bar in Dalian, says Kevin, an Aussie expat. Locals called it Kevin's house. We had everything from punk shows to dumpling nights. The lines between foreign and local totally blurred. But it wasn't all fun and noodles. The rapid pace of change was dizzying, for everyone. Old neighborhoods were bulldozed to make way for malls. Ancient traditions were being replaced by smartphones and karaoke booths. Locals felt like strangers in their own cities. Expats felt like they were racing to catch up with a country that never slowed down. I remember when my favorite noodle shop disappeared overnight, says Li Mei, a Beijing local. No warning, just gone. It became a KTV club. My grandma cried. The 2010 S-Tech, tensions and transformation. Then the 2010 S hit, and China changed again. Smartphones became king, cash disappeared, QR codes were everywhere. You could order dinner, hail a cab, book a doctor, and pay your rent, all from WeChat. To some expats, it felt like the future. To some locals, it felt like they were being left behind. And globally? The world started paying a lot more attention to China, but not always in a friendly way. Trade wars, surveillance fears, censorship crackdowns, and a more nationalistic tone started to define headlines. But on the ground, people were still just living life. Yeah, there's tension, says Priya, an Indian-American graphic designer living in Shenzhen. But my neighbors are cool, we eat hot pot together every week, I focus on that. This decade also saw a huge shift in Chinese tourism. Locals were traveling the world, and foreigners were exploring more remote corners of China. We hiked through Yunnan with Tibetan guides, stayed with farmers in Anhui, and watched sunrise over the rice terraces, says Luca, an Italian travel blogger. It was breathtaking, and most of the time we were the only foreigners around. But the sense of openness was starting to tighten. Visa rules changed, online platforms got censored, and the freedom expats once felt began to shrink, bit by bit. Still, the adventures didn't stop. In 30 years, China has gone from dusty rail cars to bullet trains, from cash-only stalls to digital-only everything. And through all of it, the stories have kept coming. Messy, heartfelt, strange, and unforgettable. For travelers, it was never just about checking sites off a list. It was about moments, trying to order tofu and getting chicken feet instead, being invited to a wedding by a stranger on a train, watching a kid in rural Sichuan show you how to use Douyin better than you ever could. For expats, it was about building lives in a place that constantly shifted under your feet. For locals, it was about watching your country speed up faster than anyone thought possible, and still trying to hold on to what matters. And for all of us watching, China's story is still being written. If you enjoy our journey, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if you like our content and want to support me, you are welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box.